I just have to make this one. And so I also want to acknowledge this, that of all of the doctrines and devotions in the Catholic Church, this was the biggest and the hardest one of all, by far. And not just for me, but for Kimberly and for most other converts who come from an evangelical Protestant background. Because I came from seminary, I got graduation, then ordination, and I began to preach, and I began to find in the Bible, with the help of the church fathers, how the New Testament is concealed in the Old, and the Old is revealed and fulfilled in the New, as St. Augustine loved to put it. And all of a sudden, the Eucharist became more than bread and grape juice. It became more than symbolism. It became the fulfillment of the covenant, where the old is transformed into the new. The only time Jesus even uses the expression, the new covenant. And he refers to the blood of the new covenant. He is himself the new covenant. And so I was often running. And I must admit, the deeper I went into the Bible, the more things came up Catholic. And not just after ordination as the pastor at Trinity Presbyterian Church in Fairfax, Virginia, but even before graduation. 2 or 3 months before graduation, I began to read the Sunday sermons of the early church fathers, and I began to share them with my friends, including my older brother-in-law, my sister's husband, Bill, who was graduating with me. I was a Presbyterian, he was a Baptist, but together we grew more and more excited about what we were finding in the early church fathers those last few months before graduation. Little did I know that in less than 2 years would come my resignation, and then a search for the church that would match what I found in the sacred scripture. But as I just indicated, the Blessed Virgin Mary, Mary seemed quite contrary to everything that I had been taught for years. And so it was the Eucharist, baptism, the other sacraments as well. I even came to realize that purgatory is rooted in 1 Corinthians 3 and other texts, and the early church fathers saw that as well. And it made sense in terms of the logic of love, that we would have to have all the selfishness burned off before we could enter into the presence of God's love. But the Blessed Virgin didn't really just fit very well. And I think back to high school when I would ask my Catholic friends, where in the Bible do you find the Immaculate Conception? Blank stares. How about the bodily Assumption? Crickets chirping. And what about her heavenly queenship? Oh, sorry, did you mean to leave suddenly? I mean, I just couldn't find any answers from my Catholic friends. And so this is what I went in search of. And I found the answers in the Bible with the help of the fathers, so that at the Easter Vigil in 1986, I was received into the church. But even before that, I'd begun to pray the rosary. I'd begun to recognize the gift of Jesus there at the foot of the cross, not just to one beloved disciple. He doesn't say, John, take care of my mother. He says to the disciple whom he loved. Is John the only disciple whom he loves? No, we all are. So John is a symbol, a representative of every disciple who becomes a younger sibling of Jesus, because any man who's going to give you his own mother is not going to withhold anything else. And so I began to realize, first and foremost, Mary is the model disciple. How do we know that? Well, just look in the scriptures and you'll hear her say, Fiat mihi secundum verbum tuum. Be it done unto me according to thy word. But she's not just the model disciple, she is the mother of God. And not just because the Council of Ephesus defined it in 431, Theotokos, but because Elizabeth declares it in Luke 1:35. Who am I that the mother of my Lord should come to me? And Mary doesn't correct her and say, oh no, I'm just the mother of his human body. I'm just bearing his human nature. Women know better than that. Mothers don't bear natures, they bear persons. And this little child happened to be the second person of the Holy Trinity, so St. Elizabeth got it exactly right. And then the Council of Ephesus does as well. Model disciple, the mother of God, and the masterpiece of Christ, our artist of redemption. All of us are works in progress. Christ is working in my life like he's working in yours. But we cannot see the perfection of his saving work in me, and I suspect in you either. But we can in the Blessed Virgin. Where is the proof that God is actually willing to give us all of his grace, all of his mercy, all of his power, all of his life. She is exhibit A. She is the masterpiece. And so if you go to an art gallery and the artist is there, he will not feel slighted or insulted if instead of staring at him, you spend more time staring at his greatest masterpiece. And so when we look upon the Blessed Virgin, we see the proof, the living proof, that God is not glorified by our groveling. God is glorified by our opening our hearts up to his grace. And the fact is, he is ready, willing, able, and powerful enough to give all of his grace. And that's why she is kakairotomene, full of grace. As the church teaches, she has a fullness of grace that exceeds all of the angels and the saints. And she is the channel, the instrument whereby all of the angels and saints get grace, because she is the queen mother of the angels as well as ours. That's a tall order. How do you go about demonstrating that in sacred scripture? Well, with the help of the early church fathers, I basically found it. But at the same time, I discovered that in becoming a Catholic, I really created problems and tensions in my own family. Not just with